explaining quality and condition ratings, those Q's and C's that we're all trying to become aware of. The Hagar Institute. We provide quality education for banks, credit unions, lenders, real estate appraisers, real estate professionals, legal, law enforcement, prosecutors, and government agencies. Your instructor today, well, that's me, Richard Hagar. I helped co-author the Washington State Mortgage Brokerage Practices Act that later became the Federal SAFE Act for licensing loan originators everywhere. I helped write the original AMC licensing laws, Foreclosure Distressed Homeowners Act, me and 100 other people in the big meeting. I do fraud profiling for law enforcement, bank mortgage broker compliance instructor, real estate broker appraiser, and an SRA with the Appraisal Institute. Appraisers, do you feel like you're being attacked? I'm sure it is. Are you feeling like you're being attacked from all sides? Somebody out to get you, like you're walking a fine line? Well, you're not imagining it. Complaints against appraisers are increasing. Those complaints can be from a bank. If they find your appraisals defective, they are required to turn you in for disciplinary action. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, they all have the same requirements, so they are turning in more and more appraisers for defective work. But you also have borrowers. I didn't get my value, and they complain. And who do they complain to? Well, of course, the state. So you're not imagining it. It really is happening. Due to the high rate of appraisal failures that have taken place over the last 10, 15 years, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac are now forcing lenders to buy back. At one point in time, they were at about $3.5 billion in loans every month. In other words, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they've already funded these loans. People are out there. Then they find a review after the fact, don't you love that, that they are, defective appraisals. Now, the borrowers could be current with their mortgage payments. A review could find that the appraisal is defective, and so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are gray listing or blacklisting appraisers, and they were finding that about 12,000 appraisals a month, well, they weren't very good, as a matter of fact. So what happens is Fannie and Freddie attack the bank. The bank turns on the appraiser because we're the ones who are still licensed. And again, you get the borrowers. So the end of this is everybody wants to attack the appraiser and figure out how to get money back. Fannie and Freddie, main focus of today is they are required to start to monitor appraisers at a level they've never done before. It's federal and state law. And they are now blacklisting, or gray listing, if you will, for borderline appraisers more and more, and it's going to accelerate. So by learning what is some of their main complaints, purpose of this class, you can avoid these issues so you can keep working and get the higher tier 1 fees. I'm trying to help you by giving you some advance notice on how people, banks, and everybody else are attacking appraisers. If I'm called to your defense in a trial or something like that, which I do a lot of work for, I have to find out that you, the appraisers, are following Fannie Mae and USPAP, the most important. You have to be following those, because if you don't follow USPAP, it's kind of tough for me to help defend you. Now, don't shoot the messenger, what I'm about to get into with the Q's and C's and the woos and the wees and all the other. I didn't make this up. This is something that was created by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac for good purpose. So they didn't get out there to deliver the message. They want people like me to do it. Don't you like that? If you've ever seen my live classes, they tend to go very fast, high speed, rock and roll sort of a thing. Now the reason for this is, most of the time they have handouts, you can go over them. In this case, you'll be able to watch this webinar, and you'll have free access, unlimited access to it for this week. So whenever you sign up to take the webinars, access goes on for a week, and so you can stop in the middle of a webinar, play it backwards, forwards. So I'll go a little bit slower, just a little, but you'll be able to go over the important things for you. Now, there is no way in we've got available enough time to go over everything. There just isn't. I could spend 6-7 hours just on the Q's and C's. So we're going to keep this down to hopefully a little less than 2 hours, and I'm going to go through the 3 things that can get you into trouble. Consistency, defining Q's, defining C's. Now think of this, we're going to combine computers, millions of appraisals, and the NSA sort of analysis and ability and algorithms and everything else. And what you have is they're finding out that a lot of appraisals don't cut it anymore. The appraisers just think they do. The reality is their work is terrible. And these computers are finding patterns. They're starting to see things that frankly they couldn't find 10 years ago. So one of these is appraisers will have an inconsistent description on the same house. Now whether that's your comparable or the subject, by changing descriptions for different lenders or in different appraisals, you're drawing a red flag to yourself is what it really amounts to. And it's creating a problem. So let's give you a little statement from the Fannie Mae All High and Above. Over the past year, the GSEs, government-sponsored enterprises, have been focusing on quality and condition ratings of the comps used in multiple appraisals by the same appraiser, and found many cases where the appraiser has changed the quality or condition rating on the same comparable from appraisal to appraisal. And we're not allowed to do that. So they're telling you right here, we have an issue with this. Appraisers have been changing the information regarding the subject property. Maybe it was on one appraisal you rated it a Q4, a different one a Q3, or the quality, condition, size. I've seen that where the house changed size magically, or the lot did. Some have a view, then the next appraisal they don't. They're trying to customize these descriptions for each appraisal, and they can't do this. You're not supposed to be doing this. So a subject property is reported differently on different reports by the very same appraiser. Understand that the subject's Q or C rating cannot change unless there's been a physical change. The description cannot change. Now again, if it's been remodeled, you can do that. But you can't have it as a Q3 on one appraisal and a Q2 on a different one if it's the same property. You're not supposed to change these things. So for instance, when you enter in your appraisal and you upload it to whatever appraisal port entry thingy that you do, when you give the house address, you establish the Q rating of 3 in this case. Well, pretty much forevermore, anytime you appraise this property, you'd better be saying that that property is a Q3. Same comparable is used by the same appraiser on different appraisals. We have seen all sorts of things being changed. The reality is facts can't change. But if you are changing your things, you're not being consistent, then you are downgraded from a Tier 1 to a Tier 2, if not maybe even a Tier 3 or 4 appraisal, right? Because they're not supposed to be doing these things. So on one appraisal, the quality was shown as a Q3 and another one a Q4. That means you're being inconsistent. It means you may be trying to fudge the value conclusion. You're trying to reach a goal if you need to change this. And I'll tell you, red flags pop up in the computer system, the collateral underwriter. It goes, oh, human, come over here. This appraiser is changing this. And they have to have a reviewer come in and look at your appraisal work. So the same thing applies for your comparables as it does for the subject. If you have qualified or described these houses, here are their addresses. If you had said, here's their Q ratings, those are fixed. They are forevermore fixed. So you need to get your Q's and C's in order the first time around. A property rating, Q or a C of a house, is one component of concern. Getting it right is the concern. But it's actually not their biggest. Their biggest concern is the fact that you change the Q or C rating. That's where it comes up to be a problem. And again, it shows that if you're taking the very same house and changing the Q and C ratings between appraisals, it means that you have an issue. You, the appraiser. Now they start to wonder how you are working or the quality of your work on everything else. Now they have to order up more personal reviews of your work. A person has to get involved and look at your work. The computer can't do it. And the more a computer has to be called to attention to analyze you, the lower your pay. So if you want to get paid more, you need to be consistent in your ratings. And you can elevate yourself from tier 3 to 2 to 1 if you do it right. Appraisers should not change the condition or quality rating from one appraisal to another. I've already gone over that. The UAD mandates that a rating classification be determined on an absolute basis. It is not relative or how it compares to others. In prior appraising world, before the CU came about, we would kind of say, well, this house is average, and we would say a better house is average plus or good. That is an opinion. It is a variable rating. That is no longer applicable. That's out. That's why they got rid of average, fair, good sort of ratings, and they have given us numbers, your Q's and your C's. And then they've also provided definitions. Your appraisal software has those definitions in them, so you should print those out and carry them around with you if you're having some problems figuring out what Q rating. But that's one of the things that we'll also get into. Now I also get this, Richard, blah, 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 blah. You don't understand. Here in Bama, things are different than in Hollywood or different than in New York. A Q3 here is different than yours. That is incorrect. There is a hard, fast definition of each Q and C rating. Pull it out and read it through. It is the same whether you're in Florida or New York or Maine or Seattle or Kansas. It is the same definition, and it is not how it relates to other houses. It is how does your house, your subject or your comparables, fit, and which definition does it fit. In other words, you have to kind of pigeonhole the property. You have to pigeonhole your comparables and your subject because your definitions, well, they don't change, and the house, not counting remodeling, doesn't change. I will tell you the super whiz-bang computer, the collateral lender AQM thing, keeps track of every single appraisal you have created since 2011 and has been loaded into the bank or the Fannie and Freddie. Every single appraisal is now there that they can monitor. They're looking to see if you are consistent in how you rate a property and how accurately you do that. Because if you keep moving things, are you trying to pull a fast one on us? Do you not know what your job is? Are you trying to alter the value conclusion? All of which could be possible if you keep changing your ratings. So this is directly from the Fannie Mae. What if the property condition or quality change over time? Will my appraisals be flagged? Yes. However, it's a big however here. If the property has undergone a change due to remodeling, updating, or fire or something like that, then you need to say so within your comments, within your appraisal, because things do change. So the computer, again, it's just a dumb computer. If it sees you changed a C3 to a C4 or something like that, and it goes, oh my, it'll say, human, come over and look at this. The human will then look at your appraisal comments, looking to see, well, why has that changed? And if you didn't comment, then you're looking kind of foolish. When I first included a comparable, I rated it as a 5. Later, I learned it was updated and it was really a 3. Now, as I compare it, I rate it as a 3. Will this create a red flag? Yes, it will. However, you have a good excuse. Before, maybe you only had MLS photos, and maybe you appraised it. Maybe you got to go inside of a comparable, and you went, oh man, that's not a 5, that's a 4, or a 3, or 2, who knows. If you gain knowledge, that's what you put into your comments addendum, that my increased knowledge is based upon an inspection. That's also where they want information sources. You go county records, MLS. Now, let's say you've inspected a property, you go county, MLS, and personal inspection. You have more knowledge, you can more accurately rate it. So if you do have these changes, just be sure you make comments. But you can't be moving it from a 3 to a 4 to a 3 to a 2 to a, you can't do that. If there are inconsistencies, Fannie Mae or some bank reviewer contacts the appraiser to ask for clarification. And if you have credible answers, you're okay. But if you don't have a credible answer, well, it's my opinion, you're going to look foolish. You're going to get gray listed by a lot of these banks or move down to tier 2 or 3 status. And they will try to help you. They will try to point out, suggest a class like this one. But if you keep making the same mistake, they're just going to get rid of you. Now I also get, oh my gosh, this is unfair. I can't remember how I rated it last time. Wow, wow, wow. Well, first of all, if you really understand the ratings, you won't be changing it. You will look at it and you'll get a very good idea of what is a Q4 or a Q5 or C, whatever it is. Practice this and you'll get it. And most of our appraisal software will remember if you ever use a comparable a second time around. But it's by you properly understanding the definitions, you won't have to worry about memorizing. You just do the job right. So let's get into the quality and condition issues. Appraisers must classify the subject in each one of the comparables using one of the 6 definitions for the Q and the C. Again, 1 to 6, 1 being the best, 6 being the lowest. Now, quality and condition ratings cover a wide range of houses. The definitions are sufficiently generic to allow many homes to fit within the same Q. You may actually have a high, medium, and low Q3. They still fit the definition. You can make adjustments for homes within the same Q rating. So if you have things that are at Q3 and your comps are all Q3, you can still do quality adjustments, as long as you can prove it, of course, and support that. But you must appropriately classify the subject and the comps into its rightful designation. So take a look at this, what I've got up on screen. The subject is a Q3. Comp number 1 is a Q3, and there's a $100,000 adjustment. The next comp is a Q3, and there's a negative $127,000 adjustment. The next one is a Q3, and there is no adjustments. The Q rating is one thing. Your adjustments are different. There can be quality differences for houses within the same general rating. There's only 6. Look, they had talked about having 10 to 15 different quality ratings. How'd you like to have memorized that little thing? But fortunately, a couple of good appraisers were involved, and they said, let's keep it down to something that appraisers can memorize and remember. So that's part of the hint for you, is you should memorize these ratings. So understand, what you're seeing here is totally acceptable and allowed. All you have to have is a good explanation of why, what is the difference, and how did you determine the adjustment. Look at this one here, Q3, Q2, no adjustment. So here I have homes of completely different quality, and I've made no adjustment. Why? I couldn't support any. I have no information that would tell me that there is a difference between a Q2 and a Q3. If I cannot support the adjustment, I'm not going to make it. Again, the computer will be triggered going, uh-oh, what's going on? A human will come over, read my comments, and I explain I have no market support, therefore none was making. Okay, thank you, and we're on down the road. This is perfectly acceptable. Confused in any way? Well, understand that the quality and condition ratings are kind of broken into the outside of the house and the inside of the property. And you can have different qualities. So what you should do is separate this. When you get to the house or drive by, you should look at the outside. You should classify the outside of the property. Now when you go in, you should look at the definitions, because they are slightly different. I'll point it out as we go forward. And then you can go through what is the inside. Here's an example of what we did. We went and created this little, I guess, grid that's here. And notice exterior, interior, kitchen, bathroom, overall. if you're confused and having problems, this is what you should do. Create one of these grids. Then you take it with you every time you go do an appraisal of the subject and even the comps. Notice exterior, exceptionally high quality exterior refinements and ornamentation. Okay, the definition for interior, exceptionally high quality interior, an exceptionally high quality grade of materials throughout, not just one room or two. And they do the same for the kitchen and the bathrooms. Q2, detailed high quality, not quite as exceptionally high, over the top. And they break it on down. You should write up a grid like this and print it out and have it in every one of your work files. If you've got people working for you, everybody in the office should be using this. When you do it like this, you will find that you become more accurate. So when I get to a house or anyone here in the office, I sit outside and okay, that's Q3, all right, and then I circle it for the subject. And then I go inside, maybe I find the inside's only a Q4 or a 5, who knows? And you go ahead and you circle that, and these are your notes that help you classify your Q's and Z's. Here's another one. Marshall & Swift produces this thing, and they actually, Marshall & Swift is changing over to the same Q ratings, instead of average, fair, good, that sort of thing. They're starting to do the very same thing, and they have a checklist. So if you subscribe to them, you can use their checklist or make your own if that's what you want to do. Anything that'll help you remember and classify when you're out at the site. Also, as we go through, we're going to get into the definitions now. Pay attention, because little words can have very big impact on definitions. And a lot of appraisers just blast through them and not paying close attention. So there's custom, unique, exceptional, above standard, standard, stock, that sort of thing. So pay attention to these little words as you read through the definitions. Remember, here's the key words again. C1, exceptionally high, exceptionally. C2, detailed, not a one-off, but detailed. Higher, standard, economy, and lowest. Economy of construction. There's all sorts of subdivisions put together with the economy of construction. And when I show it to you, many of you will be going, uh-oh. Quality is defined by a combination of things, a stew mixed together. The design of the house, the construction materials, how the materials were assembled, exterior trim and elements, fenestration, openings, doors and windows, exterior bathrooms and kitchens. So you could have a very high quality countertop, for instance, granite, but if they put it together incorrectly, if it's got rough edges, seams that aren't properly lined up, different elevations of the countertop, yeah, it's a great material, but it wasn't properly put together. That can reduce the condition and or the quality of what's going on. Now, despite what you think, not every neighborhood in America has a Q1. Some markets will simply not have a Q1. Maybe others don't have a Q3. Others may be a Q6. The best house in an area isn't always a Q1. The worst doesn't make it a Q6. This is not a relationship or relative. It's how does the house fit the definition. And again, I've been in several neighborhoods in areas and cities where they don't have a Q1 or even a Q2. Okay, there's no problem with that. But this rating system, you need to recognize that there may be gaps in there, and you have to classify everything the way they are because your classifications are fixed. You cannot change those definitions. So let's start with Q1, and I'll show you some examples. Dwellings are usually unique structures that are individually designed by an architect for a specified user. Now, right there, you don't even have to read the rest of it. Does your neighborhood have anything that is completely unique, designed for an individual person? So right there, you're saying there's no subdivisions of these houses. If you have a subdivision of houses, doesn't fit the Q1 definition. These are unique. Typically constructed from detailed architectural plans, specifications, and features, are exceptionally high level of workmanship, exceptionally high grade materials throughout the interior and exterior. Exceptionally. When you use the term exceptionally, it means like there's only one or two like it in the world or in that area. It's very, very unique. And the workmanship finishes of this dwelling are exceptionally high grade. The Hearst Castle would easily fit that. I mean, that's an exceptionally high grade swimming pool if I've ever seen it, and architectural design and materials that are in. So clearly that would fit that. This is a house north of LA, and this was owned by the guy who had Herbalife, who created that company. He died in a drunken stupor or something, I think, one night, alcohol poisoning or something. But that is an exceptionally high quality sort of house. Well, look at the floor plan itself. Have you seen anything else like it? Have you seen the round turret with a hot tub sitting in the top of it? Have you seen all those other round walls and ceilings out of glass? That is a perfect example of exceptional. You don't see it in a subdivision. This is a house in the Seattle area, and in this particular one, it's tough to see, but when you walk in, he's got a T-Rex in the entry hall to this, a real life-size T-Rex from real parts, and that's the sculpture in here. It's brushed aluminum siding on that. Those sliding glass doors, those curved doors slide open. Yeah, it's fairly rectangular sort of house, but is this an exceptional quality materials? Brushed aluminum? You darn tootin'. Triple glazed windows that slide open? Yeah, absolutely. Curves. So even though it's a fairly simple plan, it's still exceptional. You've got a house here, the original section of the one on top, the rectangular with the big panels. That was the original house, and this was one of the founders of Microsoft. And then as he became, wealthier and wealthier, he kept expanding it a little to the left, a little to the right. Then he got married and it became even bigger. And then, he got married and had kids and it became even bigger. And I think he probably moved over to the garage on the right-hand side. But you can see exceptional. Why? It's a very unique, artistic sort of thing. In the lower forward photo that's there, notice all of those buildings. They're all the same general house, if you will. They're all interconnected underground to each other. That's Paul Allen's house. And so he's got basketball courts that you can't even see up there. The one on the far right hand is the music room. So, he likes playing music and brings the boys over for a little session every once in a while. And then that yacht that's there, the city, he's on Mercer Island, and the city wouldn't allow him permit to land a helicopter. So he built a flat top boat that moves out into the lake. You can land a helicopter there and then bring it back to shore. So if you can't land it on the dock, we'll land it on the boat and bring it back in. But is that exceptional? Yeah. This is another exceptional house that you're dealing with, a little simpler in design. On the right-hand side, that's a Chihuly for a light fixture in marble, and downstairs a swimming pool. And those were all hand-painted columns by hieroglyphics put on there by a real Egyptian that they brought over for doing that. And the ceiling, and at the end it's a hot tub, and behind is a fireplace that's monstrous. Unique? Yes. We're in Tucson with this one. Concrete, steel, a matched wood siding on this one. Look on the lower right hand side. Notice how the mantle over the fireplace starts inside, slabs, and goes right outside through the glass window. They had to form the glass around it. Whether it's the mantle, the hearth, or whatever, it starts inside and goes outside. Is that unique? Yeah, darn tootin'. How about on the right hand side? The railing is solid glass. Again, very nice, high quality, unique. This house is also a Q1. It is lesser quality, but it still fits in that Q. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. There can be homes at the upper end of a Q rating and homes at the lower end of a Q rating. They still fit that rating. So it's not one size fits all. It's a lot of houses fit that one definition. And sorry, not better photos, but this is the outside deck. Oh my God, even in the dead of winter, the floor is heated, radiant heat coming down, fireplace warming. The whole area, even though it's open to the outside, is very warm. Well, you don't see that in subdivisions. You don't see that universal floor plan. So it's unique with a very, very high quality materials throughout. Here's another house that you're looking at marble floors and columns and the like. Is that unique? Yeah, we've seen a lot of this, but it is a specifically designed house for a special person, and they wanted certain things. It is not a subdivision sort of house. So that's a Q1, and as I've said, you can have them at the upper end and at the lower. So let's step it down to a Q2. Often custom designed. Often custom design for an individual property, kind of like the Q1, but it could use a more standardized plan possibly. Dwellings in this quality grade are also found in high quality tract subdivisions featuring residents of individual plans or highly modified. So in the Q1 it's unique. There's one off like it in your city, state, country, world, but here you might have somebody has a similar floor plan or look to the house. Detailed, high quality exterior ornamentation, high quality interior refinements and detail. Notice there's an outside and then there's an inside. And the workmanship, materials, and finishes throughout are generally high or very high, where on the last one is exceptionally high, totally off the charts, unique. That's why I say some neighborhoods might not have a Q1, maybe you don't even have a Q2. So look at this house here. Look at all of the trim. First of all, notice the roof. You have all of those high peaks. Why are they there? All it did was increase the roof surface. It didn't give you anything that sheds snow any better or rain. Those peaks are made for architectural look, to give you the ooh, look at this sort of thing. Look at all of the white trim between the different levels, how wide those boards are. Look at the columns they're coming down. They're all square instead of round, but they have caps on them, they have bottoms, they have trim that's around. Even around the windows, you have a very 4 to 6 inch white wood that wraps every single window throughout there. All of that is done for architectural flair. It doesn't change the square footage of the house, doesn't make it more livable, functioning. It just gives it the outside ooh sort of thing. And the workmanship, materials, and finishes are generally of high or very high quality. So again, this is rarely you will see something like that reproduced 100 of them in a subdivision of different colors. So that's one way to kind of look at it. This is a Q2. Look at the different elevations, front elevations. You come up on the stairs on the right hand side, you come past the living room that's there. It recesses in about 6 feet for the front doors to protect it. Then it comes out 6 feet to have a dining room. Then it comes out another 2 feet and in 2 feet. Then it comes out 30 or so feet. Notice a lot of this back and forth, a lot of dimensions. It doesn't make the house more livable, but it does make it more unique. It does give it that external flair, and then you can throw in some stone siding, and even the roof overhangs on the decks are huge with very nice curved cripples holding that up. It's all there for architectural style. You could have made it just an L-shaped and been through, but that wouldn't have been a Q2. That would have been maybe a Q3 or 4, 5. So understand, unique, and in this case it's highly detailed, customizable. Look at all of the roof angles here for that log home. It's just a log home, but enormous roof peaks that are in there. What does it do? It gives the interior high vaulted ceilings with a lot of glass. So in this case, you can look up at the mountains. Look at the one on the right. Okay, there. Notice as you start at the front door that it goes back a couple of feet, and then it goes wide, and then it goes back a couple of feet, and it goes wide. The whole thing is to give the house presence up front. You have all of those carved corners that's there. You've got the front door, and notice that whole piece around it that pops out. That runs about $20,000 for just that front door frame area. You don't see that on subdivisions. And then there's the, widow's walk or whatever they call it over the top. It's hi, I've arrived. Come on, you're going to walk out there and wave at your guests. Why is it there? It makes it look good. And then the oval windows on either side. Same thing. It lets in a little light, but you could have put a square thing there. Why round? Because it looks good. And then they line it up with a fountain, and you have shutters that don't really work, but you have shutters. All of that is an exterior refinement, exterior trim. Look at the one in the lower left hand. You start up high, and then you drive down a circular driveway to get down to it. So when you first see the house, you're looking at this angle right here. Have you ever seen a roof like that? Notice all of the angles in and out. And then what is it, every 8 inches or so, the roof takes a step down? Why would you do that? Because that's trim. That's exterior trim, trying to make the house look unique. If it was a cheap house, it'd be tar paper. But right here, that could be classified as a Q1 or Q2. Any one of these houses might be a Q1. Not the one in the lower right corner. But and then when you look at the curve where right behind the trees, sorry about that, that's where the front door is. And that whole structure there, its only purpose is to show you where the front door is. Nothing more. And then as you come towards the garage, notice one of the three-car garages, one of them bumps out 2 feet more than the other. Why would they do that? It's an architectural style, trim, something to make it unique. And right there, you can say, well, that's not a 504. Have I seen plans like that? Yeah, it could be a 1 or a 2. Depends upon what else is going on. The one on the right-hand side, clearly a unique house, but it's not a 1. It's not a one-off. We've seen a lot of rectangular houses and just kind of in there. That's not a custom architectural design for one person. That you can go into neighborhoods and maybe find several of those. That's what helps define a 2. So sometimes trying to figure out what your house is, it's go through them and go, well, it's not a 1. It's not a 6. Try to say what isn't the house. That may help you define what it really is. Now, you go inside of the house. So everything else we've been talking about was just outside. Now you go inside and you look at that same definition. You look at it for the trim. The one on the upper left-hand side, there's shadow box trim. There's a frame on all of the walls, a curved door opening, and it's perfectly aligned with all of the box frames and in the ceiling. It goes all the way down to the painting on the other side, and you've got a lot of white lacquer paint that's put into this place. That's far more trim than you would see in a normal subdivision house or even an upgraded. On the right hand side, white marble. Look at the hood over the oven. You've got an 8 burner. We all need 8 burners for our stove, and that whole thing is built into the wall as a fan hood, and it matches up with the Sub-Zero refrigerator. Down in the lower hand, that unit with all the candles, it's built into the floor and the wall. It's real estate. And look at all of the shelving. That's the right color. It's matched up. The fireplace itself, the green limestone, anything to bring that architectural pizzazz to it. On the right-hand side, again, shadow box trim, counters that are built in, all of those columns. Those columns don't hold up anything. They're just there for look. And then they put in birch floors to give it a very high contrast. Now, a cheap house would just be a couple of plastic pipes, and they call them columns. And you wouldn't have all of the trim and the shadow box trim up the stairs and like. You may not even have trim. It's just painted. That's what starts separating houses from C or Q3s and 4s. So let's look at the Q3. Residences of higher quality, built from individually or readily available plans. Above standard residential tract developments, or on an individual properties. But notice, readily available plans. You can find them in a plan book. It's not unique for that one person, Bill Gates, Paul Allen, or whatever it is. This is something you can open up the book and maybe you find 10 of these in your neighborhood, maybe 10 in a subdivision. Significant exterior ornamentation and interiors that are well finished. Notice that shift back and forth. Significant exterior and interiors that are well finished. Doesn't say significant interiors. Q2s have significant interiors. Q3s are just well finished. The workmanship exceeds acceptable standards, and many materials and finishes throughout the dwelling have been upgraded from stock. It doesn't say all materials, all rooms, all areas, as it does with Q1 and Q2. It says finishes, many finishes, not all. Again, slightly upgraded. And when you really start to break down the Q's and your C's, you'll start to see some differences. So, high quality built from individual or readily available designer plans. Significant exterior ornamentation. Okay, let's look at this. Notice on the right hand side, you've got that window, that bay window if you will, that's sitting over the garage. How does that give you extra living area upstairs in the rec room? It doesn't. They could have put in a skylight and it would have been fine. Why is that there? Because that's significant exterior ornamentation. It's only there for its ornamentation. Notice the window is curved at the top and then it's got the grid work in it. Again, you don't need it curved. You could have made it square. You could have made a normal 4040 window that's there. But this is more, it's curved and there's trim around it. And that's where you start to see the definition of significant exterior ornamentation. The 3 garage doors, slightly arched with a keystone over each one. In a Q4 or 5, you wouldn't have it arched. You wouldn't have a keystone. Look at the entry. You know exactly where that entry is. There's trim down at the bottom of it. There's trim at the top of the door. That whole structure around the door, its only purpose is to add ornamentation to the house and make it look better. Because if they just made it flat, first of all, you get wet when you open the door, but it would take away from the house. Extremely high peaked roof, 12 pitch roofs on something like that. And between each floor, you have exterior trim. Shift over to the windows on the left hand side. Notice that's a whole structure and it's about 1.5 feet forward, pulled forward of the house. Why would you pull it forward? What, to give you an extra square foot? Come on. The whole purpose for that is to give significant exterior ornamentation to the house. If it was flat with a house and there was no trim on the top or the very tall windows, then you could be hitting a Q4. But in this case, there's so much trim, windows, and even very oversized windows, that it changes it from a Q4 to a Q3. And by the way, this floor plan in the Seattle area, they're all over the place. And so right there you go, well, if it's all over the place, it's not a Q1, it's probably not a Q2, but it's a lot. And because of the ornamentation, it's not a Q4. Here's another one. Let's start on the right hand side and you'll see there's a window that's there and there's brick all around it. Why did you have to build that structure, pulling it out 1 foot, lining it with brick, giving yourself a curved window at the top and a little bit of a roof? Its whole purpose is significant exterior ornamentation. A very steep roof pitch, again, cheap houses would be flat. You've got a fireplace that's octagon shape. Could have done that square, rectangle, out of wood, but in this case it's brick. Doesn't make it last longer, it's ornamentation. Steep roofs. And notice all of the windows just to the right of the front door, a quarter curve and a full half turn over the top. It's not allowing a whole lot more light into the house, but it's there for looks, and it develops that theme, if you will, goes along with the window on the right-hand side where the dining room was. You have the same arch over the front door. You know exactly where the front door is. A very massive structure that's there. Probably ran about 20,000. The door was only about 5,000, so it wasn't a big deal. Oh, in that case, it's not a Q1. And they carry the brick theme, and you'll see different elevations to the front of the house, in and out, and a very complex roof angle. Now, this is, imagine this house with no trim, nothing on it. You'd have yourself a rectangle, is what it amounts to. But in this case, notice the bay window right next to the front door. Again, it's a look. And the corners of this house, they are made out of, probably styrofoam with stucco over it, sort of a scenario. Thick trim around the windows. That front door, you know exactly where that is. It's a huge structure with large glass windows. When you move over to the right-hand side on the top floor, notice how there's a flat plane of the house, then it bumps out about 3 feet, moves over 6, bumps back 2, moves over 10, bumps into, moves to the right, comes out. All of those angles don't make the house more functioning. Don't give you more room inside. They take it away. All it's there is to give more architectural relief and style to the house. Right on down to the 3 garage doors, match pairs. Why not run 2 car garage and a single? In this case, 3 individual garage doors with glass. And gee, look at all of the driveway, the trim on it, the walkway, the wrought iron railings and gates that are here. Significant exterior ornamentation. Right on down to the complex roof line. Look at the gutters that wrap around. What water are they catching off the front of the house? Nothing. Why are they there? Ornamentation. Now understand, ornamentation can apply to old houses just as well as newer ones. This was a house built around the turn of, the beginning of 1901-ish. Look at all of the roof cripples that are coming down. They're holding it out. It doesn't make the roof stronger. It's ornamentation that's there. And then you see the windows where they pop out about a foot. And then look at all of that wood carving underneath. It's not necessary to make it stronger or better. It's there because it's trim. Look at the walkway, we'll call it. There's 2 windows that are there, and the rail that's around at the top. It's kind of like you'd expect somebody to be walking back and forth, except it's too small to walk back and forth. It's a clever way to get out and wash the windows from the outside, but its only other purpose? Ornamentation. The windows are ornamentation. Even the scroll work in the wood all around the entryway that's there. And on the left-hand side, when this house was built, they didn't even have garages or need them. And so, that was something that was added on later. But before there's stain windows, that's a staircase that goes up. That's that landing halfway up where it has all of that. And it's pulled out 2 feet, goes over 6 to 8 before it goes up. They could have made it a simple square box, calling this a 4-square sort of a house. But they put it there because it's ornamentation, which right there elevates this house. It cannot be a 6, 5, a 4. This house is elevated to 3. And because there's a lot of floor plans like this, it cannot be a Q1. Now we've done the exterior, now come inside. And that's why I say you need to break this off. Look at the property in the photo on the left. There's some trim or in the rooms that are there. They've got some shadow box, some crown molding, columns. They have different ceiling heights, thick trim and the like. It's an upgrade from a standard builder's grade subdivision, if you will, but it's not hitting that Q2 range. Look at on the right hand side. See those columns? Those are prefabbed columns. They're not supplying anything structural. They're there for a look, and they didn't spend a lot of money. I was showing you one in the Q1. Those were huge columns. In fact, you might not even be able to reach around them. They were made out of stone or a cement mix to create them. These are PVC plastic with some texture to it. A very flat ceiling in this. On the lower photo that's there, yeah, it's upgraded a bit. It's better than standard. And the fireplace has some very nice refinements and features to it, but it's still a zero clearance, and it's still a very minimal mantle, where on the Q2 or 1, they were significant mantles, significant architectural designs. There's nothing overly significant about these. Even on the windows and the difference between the wall and the ceiling, you'll notice there's not a lot of trim up there. In fact, the only one that has trim is on the lower left, or excuse me, the upper left photo. The rest of them don't have any ceiling to wall trim, crown molding. So let's step down to 4. Dwellings meet. Isn't that nice? They meet the requirements of building codes. Well, and maybe exceeds it, but it meets it. Everything to this point blew the building codes away. They were far beyond. Now we're kind of, maybe the building code. Standard, modified building plans are utilized. Some exterior ornamentation and interior refinements, where on the others they were unique exterior or significant exterior. This is, we got some. Materials, workmanship, finish, equipment are of stock, builder, some. Notice those small words are getting down to some, kind of, who cares? Now you start hitting standard builder grade. Exceeds building codes. Well, that's not really that difficult to do, by the way. Standard or modified plan. That is what we would call a tri-level floor plan. The tri-level floor plan was then modified. On the far right-hand side, you'll see where there's about a 10-foot addition. That was designed into it from the very beginning, but that's where the dining room is. Then you come back and you see the other 3 windows. That's where the living room is. Then you see the front door. It's a standardized tri-level plan that's been modified with a clear story roof and adding to a 3rd car garage from 2. There's just an extra garage there, so they bumped it out a little bit. Some exterior windows. No sky, well, one skylight over the entry and some windows, but they're not those curved windows that we saw in Q3. They're not those window boxes or window shades that are brought out and really amplify and give the house more shadow or dimension. This is a lot of flat spaces that are there. Some upgrades. Okay, it could be maybe a tile roof or a metal roof as opposed to a comp. Maybe there's an architectural comp. Q4 at most. These are also Q4. Look at the one at the top. They've got those eyebrows on the roof on the far left-hand side and then over the garage. They didn't add any functional use. They haven't made the house more livable, bigger, more attic space. It's just for the look of it. There is some brick trim that is put in. So it's some. We haven't hit the Q1, 2, or even 3 level with this house. Down on the right-hand side, notice those dormers that are there. Nicely aligned. They didn't have to build dormers, but even here they're not that big. They're just kind of put in, so it's that look, if you will. And the window shutters, they're actually just pieces of glued on is probably what they did. Guys in a couple of 6-packs came and used a screw gun and put them on. They're not workable or for any other reason other than to take that very flat plain house, the very flat front. If they didn't have some of that trim, it just looked bleh. So there is some, and even the front door, at least you know where it is, but it's not those significant door structures that we have seen in Q3 or 2. And on the left-hand side, you're looking at a Dutch sort of a house. The whole roof design is made to give it this look. And the front door, okay, kind of glued on is what it looks like. It's a square house. You could almost call it a 4-square, except for the roof line changes it. It's a rectangle at best with some things stuck on it, but you don't see overly tall windows. They're not 6 and 8 feet with curves at the top. You don't see overly complex roof designs or window treatments. You don't see where the exterior siding pops out 2 feet, recesses 5 feet, back and forth. It's a plain front, and they're trying to make it look good with some trim. Q4. Now, up on the left, Q4. Now, the people might say, but it's a 3. Not really. There is some trim. But what they have done is taken a very standardized plan and made some modifications to it. You might argue that it's a 3, and I could see that because there's some trim that's to it. There's brick curves over the doors for the garage, and there is some trim around the upstairs windows and a little bit of curve. So you are pushing back into that 3. I would tend to say it's more of a 4, but before I call that, I'd want to see the inside. I want to see, because we're supposed to rate the inside and the out. Now look at this one down in the bottom. Q4, no question. Yes, it's got a roof cripple, it's got some shake siding up above, lap siding down below, and a front porch, but nothing that is significant, because a Q3 has significant exterior ornamentation. A Q4 does not, and I see no significant ornamentation on this house. You see a craftsman sort with a big porch, and if it didn't have a porch, it'd be even plainer. The porch is actually what's giving this house some dimension and style. So this would be a Q4. These are some other Q4s. Standardized plans, builder grade, slightly modified with a little exterior trim. A little. Okay, there's some strange cutouts on the left-hand side, over those 3 windows. That's about it. And that roof peak, you got 3 of them there, but it's not a 12-12 pitch. You're not dealing with multiple roof angles for dimension. You're not looking at brick trim. You're looking at some trim. The one on the right-hand side would be very similar to that. It's a 4. It is clearly not a 1 or a 2. No, it's not even a 3. 4. So here's one. Are these a 4 or a 5? So let's look at the definition. Dwellings meet or exceed the requirements of building codes. Well, they're brand new, so duh. Standard or modified plans are utilized and designed. Some window fenestration. Okay. Materials, workmanship, finish, stock. Now, when I first saw these, I had classified these as a 5. That was my initial. And in the office, a couple of us would go out to this when we were just learning our Q's and C's, and we'd sit out there and argue over this. Well, why is it a 4? Why is it a 3? And we'd go back and forth. I originally said this was very stock, standard, nothing, but as we started to look at it, all of us who were standing there, we all agreed it was a 4. Notice you have those decks that are out there. Most of that's for trim. There's no big view. If you look at the top, you'll notice each one has a different roof line, although they're all the same floor plan, by the way. They all have different ceiling treatments, all different roof lines. And then if you look at the windows, some of them have some thicker siding around it and trim, not a whole lot. And look at it on the 1 second from the right. Look at it where the sliding glass door. What they do? Give up on putting a deck cover over it? They just put some 1x6 and screw gun to the wall to give it some trim. They're not going to put a cover on it. It's just kind of the way you see it right here. So that's why we're arguing over it. But there's trim on the doors, the windows. There's some, and it's a standard stock floor plan that this builder builds by the hundreds around the Pacific Northwest. Q4. So the one on the left, Q4. Standard or modified plan. No problem for that. A lot of those built. They took a standard plan, 1.5 story, and changed it. There's a lot of windows, the exterior fenestration they call it. Trim. Look at the roof line. It even has multiple angles and cripples. The siding, there's shingles at the top, and then there's lap siding at the lower half of it. And you've got a very nice retaining wall and stairs and the like. So it's not a 1 or a 2. No, it's a 4 on something like this. So if that's a Q4, what's the one on the right? 5. Plain design using readily available or basic floor plans. It's a square box, by the way. Minimal window openings, pretty much as minimal as you can get, and there's no bay windows or box windows or anything like that. Basic, minimal exterior ornamentation. A deck or a front porch that's been kind of glued on is probably all that trim you got on this house. See, where the one on the left, there's different sidings, there are roof cripples, there's multiple roof angles, pulled out here, pushed in there. The one on the right, it's a square box. That's when you start to decide, oh, I see it, that's a 5. Now, right now, a bunch of you are probably sitting here going, no, it can't be, it's a 4. You got to let go. It's a 5. And that's the problem, is a lot of appraisers are trying not to say, oh, I can't say it's a 5 or a 6. Yeah, actually you can. Fannie Mae came up with these new ratings to get rid of that average, fair, poor thing and the stigma that was put onto homes that were fair or poor. They gave us a numbering system so we would not fall into that trap. Unfortunately, a lot of you still are. So understand, the one on the left is the 4, the one on the right is the 5. Then you can also look at the inside of the houses. So you've rated the outside. Now with that sheet that I was showing you, that kind of, that cheat sheet helps you through, now you start to go through standard quality. Look in the lower right hand side, there's a little shadow box trim that's there. Now on the 3s, there was significant interior, or excuse me, on 2s, there was significant interior. And on the 3, there was some interior. We're hitting here 4. It's like, a stair wall in the dining room. There's none running up to the upper stairs. There's none in the entry hall or throughout the living room. It's just that little piece that kind of goes into it. It's very minimal. The floor plan, okay, you got a little step up, it makes it nice. The fireplace surround, hey, that's a kit. You can put it in with a screw and some glue, and it just goes right onto the wall. That's not significant. It's not well finished. It's not exceptional. It's standard builder grade stuff. So let's step it down to 5. This is where you're all going to have some problems. Dwellings feature economy of construction and basic functionality as its main consideration. Well, that clearly isn't a Q1 or 2 or even a 3. Clearly. It says basic, economy, plain, minimal, basic, minimal, limited, meets minimum building code, inexpensive, stock, limited. Notice the repeating words here. Doesn't fit anything close to what was in the Q2 or Q3 or even the Q4. This is as minimal as you can get before it becomes almost uninhabitable. Minimal roof design, minimal windows, unless you call that hatch pattern on the one-car garage, exterior incredible ornamentation. What's unique about this house? The windows to the living room open out at the bottom. That's about it. This is as minimal as a house you can get while still having some nice siding on it. There's not a complex roof lines. They're not 12-12 pitches. They don't move out for one set of windows in for another. You have a slight recess for where the entry is. That's about as wow as it gets. So economy of construction. Clearly it's tar paper. Plain design. Yep. Common plan. Subdivisions by the tens of thousands across America. Minimal ornamentation. Okay, what ornamentation do you have besides the garage door? None, right. Basic fenestration, window and door openings. It's as basic. You have a window per bedroom, you have one in the living room, you have one in the dining room, or a family room in this case, and a one-car garage. Minimal building codes, minimal. Absolutely fits it. Now some of you are going, oh my, I've been claiming that that's a 4. You're not alone. As we do these classes, people often say that, but the reality is you've been likely boosting the classification of many of our houses inappropriately. Time to change. Economy of construction. The one in the upper right, we call that a tri-level. Okay, what is some extra? It has a vaulted ceiling in the entryway and living room, and it has a little bit of brick trim. Is there any other trim here on this house? Plain design, common plan, minimal ornamentation, basic windows. You can't have much less than what's even shown here. Minimal building codes. Trust me, it's cold in the winter in most of these houses. These are additional Q5s. Minimal, minimal, minimal. Now they're nice, they're great starter homes, good condition, but we're talking Q, not the building code of condition. We're talking the quality. And the green one is a square box, is what it amounts to. And the one on the upper left, well, you know where the front door is. And then inside, economy builder's grade. Baseboard electric heat, some trim that's put down. There's no crown molding in it. There's no 10-foot ceilings. These are 8-foot and maybe even 7.5. The stairs, they're not grand staircases curving down like you'd see in a Q1, 2, or maybe even a 3. It's built into the wall, as cheap as you can make this house. Then you look at the kitchens, Q5s. Minimal. That's Formica with a metal edge to it. It's vinyl. It's a solid plywood front door to the cabinets that's there. They're wood cabinets. They're not customized with dimensional wood on the front end and a lot of trim. It's as minimal as you can get, as inexpensive as you can get. On the lower or on the right hand side, that pink counter, okay, it's got a rolled edge. Woohoo! Blow your hair back. But the light fixtures are all, what, $5 a piece? Look at the fan over the oven. It's a hole in the ceiling with a fan in it. There's not that extensive fan hood marble thing that kind of goes, whoo, this is where the oven is. It's like, well, where do you want to put it today? Minimal. Now understand, you're rating the quality, not the condition. So yeah, these two houses are sad condition. I get that. But the economy of construction, plain, minimal, that's what these houses are. They would be rated as a Q5. So I'm sure a lot of you have appraised Q5s all over the place. Condition is separate than quality of construction. The one on the left-hand side clearly has condition issues. But remember, you have to classify its quality first. Condition is separate. So Q6, the lowest there is. Dwellings of basic may not be suitable for year-round occupancy. Now we're talking a hunter's cabin, that sort of thing. Often built with simple plans or even without plans. Lowest quality building materials available. Built by people maybe unskilled. Minimal construction skills. Minimal to non-existent mechanical systems. Older dwellings may feature one or more substandard or non-conforming additions. They went and kind of tacked it on. Clearly, 6s. I mean, look at that house on the upper. Serious, that's a house, and you're dealing with, what's that? All of 16 by 8 feet in the house, maybe 4, 8, so yeah, maybe 12. It's a 2-story house, and you know where the front door is, huh? It's got that curved. Glue it on with a 4x4 post. Down below, the Camaro probably has more value than the house. It's tar paper, minimal plastic for thermopanes, minimal, basic, maybe not inhabitable year around. The cheapest form possible. I don't know how you could make that any less expensive of a house. And there's an addition to boot, that was there. How could you make that any less? There's where you start to see a Q6. Q6. On the right hand side, it was a very nice quality manufactured home that was on the in the lot, but then they did this bizarre addition to it. Simple materials. It's OSB. They haven't even put siding on it. It's been there for years this way. So right there, because of this addition, you could have had a Q3 for the manufactured home, but the moment they added this addition, it downgraded the entire house to a Q6. Basic quality, lower cost, maybe not suitable for year-round. Where are the windows in this house? Oh, there's 2 little ones, the backside of the same house. The very same house. What's there? Electrical systems pulled out. There's no air conditioning. There's just some vents, a door that's open. Q6, maybe not suitable for year-round construction. So that's your cues. So let me give you a comparison so you can kind of look at it and give you some tips on how to help you a little bit more. Look at the roof lines of these houses. The one on the left-hand side, and this is obviously in the same subdivision, look at the complexity of those roof lines. They would also have a very complex exterior wall surface, different dimensions and elevations, where on the right, they're far more simple. As it says, only 6 surfaces. So you can also look at roof structures that can help you figure things out. Since this is a subdivision and the houses on the left are all fairly similar, we know it's not a Q1, we know it's not a Q2. The best those could be is a Q3. Where on the right hand side, you're looking at all these surfaces, more than likely these are a Q4. I don't think they're 5s. In fact, I know they're not 5s. They are 4s for something like this. So you can just start looking at roof lines and it can start giving you an idea of what's there. So let's look at these houses. They're all built in the same subdivision. They are all built by the same builder. They all sold within about 60 days of each other. So there's no time adjustments or anything like that. And their floor plans are all fairly similar. Some are bigger, but they're all fairly similar. Look at the sales prices. We have the perfect matched pair on the right-hand side, by the way. So let's go through. $300,000 to $540,000. It's the same floor plan. Very same. But the driveway, notice the driveway at the top is just concrete, where the one down below, it's stenciled concrete with colors. The one down below has bigger, wider roof tiles. That is an indicative of a higher quality house, where the top one is smaller and red and cream colored. Who figured that would actually count? The fireplace on the top, there isn't one. Fireplace down below, there is, and that house then grew by 2 feet because of the fireplace that was installed. You have fences down below. Right around the entryway, there's a fence. I know it's only 2.5 feet tall. It is a little gate, but that is changing the quality of the house. You have landscaping lights, and oh, by the way, you've got a smoking cactus down below. You know, once you get a cactus, it's, you know, worth $1,000. Blows me away what they'll pay for. So what you have is a matched paired analysis. Same house, floor plan wise, and there's $240,000 of difference between the quality ratings. Again, no solid door on the a solid door on the left, a glass door on the right. No fence, no fireplace, red rock. Glass door, storm door, fence and a gate, fireplaces, 2 feet, and tan multicolor rock, all of which changes the house significantly. Still confused? So outside of the home is one way to measure your Q. Indicators are the exterior, structural openings, kitchens, and bathrooms are 5 other things for you to think about. So let's look at some others. Let's look at the kitchen. Same houses. The one in the upper left hand is, you know, Lowe's special. It's about as minimal as you can get other than flat plywood doors. Formica counters, drop-in, stainless steel, cheap. Everything's cheap, low ceiling height. But look on the right hand side. Ooh, tall ceilings, custom cabinets, granite or soapstone or solid stone countertops. Everything on the right-hand side is far superior to the one on the left. How about the bathrooms? Look at the bathrooms. The upper left hand, that's about as minimal as you can get. It's fiberglass. You don't have it's a shower curtain, you know, you don't have the aluminum doors or frosted glass or anything like that. Vinyl flooring. Now you look on the right hand side and you'll see there's frosted glass aluminum, there's an arched entryway into it, you've got marble countertops, and when you look down below, what was aluminum frosted glass is now a glass block shower enclosure. More lights, more structure around the cabinets and the makeup area in the morning. They are the very same floor plan, the very same house, but you can start to see a difference. So the one on the upper left, what Q is that? I'm starting to think 5. 6? No, it's inhabitable, usable. It's better than a 6. It's not a 1, 2, or a 3. Are you afraid to call it as it really is? So let's look at the entryways. Well, the one on the left. Okay, I got AstroTurf. And it's a little recessed, so that's kind of nice. Okay. But on the one on the right, notice there's that whole door structure that's there. Its only purpose is to let you know where the front door is. Now in this case, it's a courtyard entry, and on the left-hand side, you get the mother-in-law apartment that's added to it. So it does give it a little bit more. That's the difference between these. But you have that huge roof structure just for the front door. So let's look at ceilings. Ceiling on your lower quality house, 8 feet flat. Now go down to the higher quality houses. Notice vaulted ceilings, 10, 15, 20 feet. You've got a wet bar that's on the one on the left, and then there's a really nice one on the one on the right with that very matching granite and a lot of mirrors. Well, the one on the left doesn't have the mirrors. It doesn't have as extensive of counters and expensive as well. But they're both in higher quality houses that you wouldn't see in a 5. Fireplaces, I don't know, 2x4s with some tile on it. The one on the right, at least there's more structure to it. The one down below, look at that fireplace that's there, far better than the one on the left. Mirrors, decorative style with it, a lot of marble. So, I've shown you everything in these houses. Now that you've seen everything, how would you rate them? That's how I rate them. Q5 on the upper left, as minimal as you can get. It's almost a 4. It's almost a 4, but it is not there. But look at the one on the right. That's a Q4, and the one below it is a Q3. And by the way, there is a difference in the Q rating because of the components, the surfaces, the materials, everything, even though it's almost the exact same floor plan. And they were selling for $240,000 apart in price. Why? Because of the Q. There's no difference in C. So here's some other examples. You've got this one up on top. It's a 2-story. Look at all the roof angles to it, the dormers that are there, those 3. Big brick fireplaces, another structure over the front door, gridded windows, shutters, and the like. Brick walls and cedar lap siding. Multiple fireplaces. Okay, that's far superior quality than this one on the left. Far superior to it. And that's how you start to look at these things. The one on the top right, complex driveway, brick, stone, shutters. The one on the left, little dinky shutters, actually just pieces of plywood. Minimal, 5, Q5 on this one. Why? What trim do you have? The shutters on the front windows and the relights next to the front door. That's not significant trim, it's not exterior. It's a 5. It's minimal trim, minimal exterior, minimal roof pitch, minimal number of sizes of windows. Could you maybe push it to a 4? Depends upon what's inside. But upon what I see right here, 5. 4. Clearly much better. You've got this high-pitched roof, but it's a very standardized floor plan built everywhere. You've got nice shutters, recessed entryway, thick cedar siding, bow living room that bumps out there. You got crosshatch windows, windows in the garage, plus relights, plus a trim on the garage doors. This is nothing but trim. And a cedar shake roof. Look, a hot tar roof would have done it. Tar paper would have done it. Why would you do a big thick cedar shake? Because it gives it more exterior elements. So the one up there, minimal exterior elements. The one down here, some exterior ornaments, is in a 4. Significant is in a 3. But I don't see significant exterior ornamentation down there. I don't see anything significant. I do see some. I do see more than normal. So it's not a 5. 4 clearly hits a 4. Stock plans. You're starting to see it. These houses were across the street from each other, built by the same builder, as a matter of fact. Well, the one on the right-hand side, customized but not unique. 2 or a 3, I have no problems with it. All of the trim, the angles, and everything. But the ones on the left-hand side, come on, 4s at most, typically 5s for these. Kitchens can help you. You've got granite countertops, 45-degree angles on there. You've glass block under the counters. The cabinets are, if not custom made, they're at least have high quality dimensional lumber that's within there. Over the oven or the cooktop that's there, gas range, glass. You got a pull out fan hood that's there. Those are tall ceilings, probably about 9, maybe 10 feet. All sorts of things that are superior. That's not a Q1, it's not a Q2, nor is it a 6 or a 5. And then you can look at it, this was the very same size kitchen, strangely enough, and you're looking at Formica and vinyl, drop-in aluminum, as inexpensive as you could get away with, short of being a Q5 or a 6. So what's your Q ratings? Just look at the cooktop alone and the hood, the range over that. The one on the left, Q3. Workmanship exceeds acceptable standards, and many materials and finishes have been upgraded from stock. No sweat. 5. Minimal, inexpensive, stock. Fenestration, fenestration. What that means is openings, windows, doors, skylights. But fenestration can be used to help you qualify and classify the Q. Okay, Q6 on the left, come on, minimal, may not be inhabitable. Q4 is, you can see that on a 5, 4, no, I wouldn't see it on a 5. The one on the right, clearly 1 or 2. Man, that guy blew 75 G's on that whole entryway. Clearly, kind of over the top. But you're also looking at a variety of windows, so you need to pay attention to the windows. Is there curves? Are there arches? Is it floor to ceiling, like you see on the right-hand side? You go floor to ceiling, all of a sudden the quality of the glass has to change. It has to be much thicker. It has to be safety. The window itself starts to double, if not triple, in cost. You need to pay attention to those things. Okay, Q4. On the left, it's not a 5. Why? A Q5 wouldn't have a skylight. A Q4 would. That's kind of where you'd start having skylights. But a Q5 or 6 wouldn't have a skylight. So clear, you start to see it, you start getting this indication that it could be a 4 or a 3, depends upon the rest of it. At skylights on the right-hand side, okay, 1 or 2. This one down at the bottom, that's actually through the entire center of the house. You open up the front door and you can look right out the other side of the house, and the whole center of it is there. Okay, that's unique, over the top, 1 or 2. Probably not a 3, because that becomes a standardized plan. So the Q, rate the design, the exterior angles, the trim. Now your interior trim, the methods of construction. Was it, built at a factory, or did they custom built there? Kitchen, bathrooms, windows, doors. You do an overall rating for the entire house and take lots of photographs. And this is why I recommend that you create your own sheet, if you will, that you can take out as part of your notes for rating of the house, and you put it in your work file. Now, I'm not saying that the Q rating and Marshall and Swift are absolutely equal, but if you look at the Marshall and Swift quality ratings, particularly on their new guide starting in about 2014, I think it was, you will see they're suspiciously similar. And the Marshall and Swift maybe is able to help you a little bit more because it describes 2x4 versus 2x6 for construction and other things. So if you're still confused, I can tell you that the Marshall and Swift may have some information that would be of help to you. Now let's shift over to the C. So what you're dealing with, the condition rating selected for the property must reflect the holistic view of the condition. Overall, total, inside and outside. And it would be inappropriate to select either the lower end. Well, that's got vinyl floor, therefore the whole condition is down. Now they want this overall, and you can't say, well, one room is totally remodeled, therefore I'm going to give it a C2. What's the overall? It's kind of an average, if you will. Describe the overall condition of the property. Include positive and negative components. Write down any needed repairs, deterioration, renovations, remodeling, anything. This applies to the improvements, the things built upon the land. And you must specifically comment on the condition of the kitchen and the bathrooms. Specific comments. This one thing right here alone can get some appraisers lowered quality on your tier rating. You may be doing everything right, but you forget to comment about the kitchen and the bathrooms. You need to make specific comments about the overall and the kitchen and the bath. It helps. And you have to rate everything on a 1 to 6 scale. The house, the kitchens, and the bathrooms. The appraiser must select one of the following ratings that best describes the overall. And it must match the overall condition rating as reported in the sales comparison approach. So you can't go on the front page and say, hey, it's a C2, but in your rating page, you do it as a C5. You cannot do that. You have to be consistent throughout the entire appraisal. And again, as I recommend, I say you should have this UAD property condition quality worksheet. You should create it. I showed you one version at the beginning of this little quick webinar, but Marshall and Swift and others have them. You can create your own. I would strongly recommend that you do this. In fact, I don't know how you do an appraisal without it, and that way you've got your notes and all of your information, and it will make your Q&C life easier. New construction, C1. Well, that's difficult, isn't it? The improvements have been recently constructed and have not previously been occupied. There is a key. The entire structure and all components are brand new. No physical depreciation, but nobody's occupied it. Nobody's occupied it. And it's clear to indicate that since nobody's been there, and it can't have been used as a model home. You get into some subdivisions and plats where they have those models right out front. The moment they've been occupied as a model home, they have been occupied. They lose their C1 status. Even though nobody's lived in them permanently, they've been in and out of the basement, the main floor, maybe the garage is the office or something like that. Once you got people tramping through the house, it's no longer C1. Newly constructed improvements that feature recycled materials can be considered a C1 as long as everything's placed on a brand new foundation. In other words, they get some big huge barn and they take off the siding or some of the beams, they resurface that, and then you bring it back into your house. That can, even though it's recycled material used, if you will, if it's on a brand new foundation, it can be classified as a C1. There is a slight exemption to the C1. If a new house has had any significant, measurable, viewable, physical depreciation, it's no longer a C1. In other words, let's say you have a C1 and during 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it sat there unoccupied. It lost its C1 status because it starts to have depreciation on the roof, on the paint, on the siding, or maybe it was inside, there's a little mold or something around the edges. The moment it's an extended period, and this is the one thing, they're not clear on extended, but I tell you, if you've had a brand new house sitting there for more than a year, you're probably losing your C1. If it's over 2 years, definitely say you've lost your C1 status. The highest it could ever be is C2. C2, the improvements feature no deferred maintenance. In other words, if there was any maintenance required, it was done. Boom. Little or no physical depreciation and requires no repairs. There's no broken windows, broken gutters, downspouts, ripped in the vinyl, carpets, nothing. Virtually all building components are new or have been recently repaired, refinished, or rehabbed. All outdated components have been removed and replaced. So what this amounts to is these homes can be, think of the houses are fix and flip. We bought the house and we made everything brand new. Because you're not replacing the foundation and the structural components, the highest rating a house could ever be, once lived in, the highest could ever be is back to a C2. So C1 are only brand new, never been occupied. The best any occupied older house could ever be, regardless of the amount of remodeling, rehab, whatever, is C2. C2, this house on the left-hand side, they gutted it down to the studs. I mean everything. But it had the original foundation. They did extensive repairs. And then they brought it new wiring, plumbing, sheetrock, everything. But there was still the original foundation. So this could never be classified as a C1. 1. The best is a C2. The one on the right hand side, it was an older house, but they went through and put in the smoking bathroom and closet space and the like. It's equal to a brand new house, but it was in an older remodeled house. So again, the best could ever be is a C2. Same for this one down below. Older house, they brought up and kind of overdid it for the decks and trellises, but the highest could be is a 2. C3, the improvements are well maintained and limited physical depreciation, normal wear and tear. Some components, but not every component, may be updated or recently rehabbed. May. See, the difference is a C2, virtually everything is. A C2 takes a house almost to brand new condition, just not quite. Where a C3, it's either you're going downhill because it's, being used, or they've remodeled. Some may be updated, some, but not every single one. The structural's been well maintained. Clearly, C3s for these. Well maintained, painted when they needed to be. Some components are a little behind the times, but if there was anything that was needed, they went in and they fixed it. If it was totally gut remodeled, it'd be a 2. Could never be a 1 again. Could be a 2. I don't see a 4 here. Everything's nice and well maintained. 1 on the left, some deferred maintenance. In need of cosmetic repairs. Normal wear and tear. Yep. Not a C1, not new, not a C2 remodeled. The one on the right is a C2 because it was massively remodeled. Needs some cosmetic repairs. So that's where you start seeing the C4 rating. And the one on the right hand side, those are actually both spitting image built by the same builder at the same time. And when they came back through to do remodeling, the guy on the right said, screw it, I'm going up. And so they turned the attic into a full living area, but they are actually the same house built by the same. So once they totally remodeled it, added another floor, did everything, the best it could ever be is a C2. If it had always been, kind of wear and tear on it, maybe a C3. But the one on the left, 4. C4, the improvements feature some minor deferred maintenance and physical depreciation. The dwelling has been adequately maintained and requires only minimal repairs for building components or mechanical or something. I will tell you most older houses fit within this very easily. All major building components have been maintained and functionally adequate. In other words, they work. The doors open, the windows close. In this particular house, the house is fine. It's functioning. It works. They've maintained. About the only thing it needs to be repainted. I mean, that's faded siding that you can see. Some minor deferred. They didn't paint it when they should have. That's deferring it down, kicking the can down the road. It's not rotting or anything like that. It's still adequate. It still functions. There's no obsolescence in it. It's been maintained. It needs some paint, So at that point, you actually start to hit the C4 rating. C4, minor deferred maintenance. All right. This house has been maintained. It was, 1945 to 50 sort of thing, but they went through it and they were always maintaining it, always taking care of it. If there was a broken hinge, they put a new one. When the cupboards got too many kids' fingerprints on it, they resurfaced it. They did everything they really could. Adequate maintenance, over-the-top maintenance of some of this. The quality of the cabinets is lower. The quality of the sink and the countertops, that's quality that we're talking about. That's a Q, maybe a 4 or a 5. I am talking about the C, the condition. All major building components have been adequately maintained and function. 5, deferred maintenance, in need of significant repairs. Notice that, deferred maintenance, in need, significant. Some building components need repairs, rehab, or updating. The functional utility and overall livability is somewhat diminished, but it's still usable. That's why I'm saying pay attention to these small little words that are in here. clearly a C5, maybe even a C6 on this one. That's, yeah, moss growing up. It still shed water. It wasn't leaking inside, strange as that is. The livability kind of diminished a little bit. It's still usable as a house, still functions as a house, but I bet you it wouldn't be too far until it starts to leak inside on the insulation and into the house in general. So it's right at that point of it needs deferred maintenance. It needs a roof. Obvious deferred maintenance: peeling paint, broken windows, busted gutter, the yard sucks, the gates are, falling across. Functional utility is somewhat diminished due to the condition, but the dwelling remains usable and functioning as a residence. This is not a 3 or a 2. We're at the 5 range. Arguably the same thing here. Moss on the roof, water stains on the right hand side, siding wearing down, mold starting, but the house is still functional and usable. It's not a 3. It's a 4 at best. 5 more than likely. So people go, yeah, but the bank tells us they won't do loans. That's the bank lying to you. Fannie Mae, this is a statement directly from them. Condition ratings: Fannie Mae accepts loans secured by properties with any condition rating, provided that all other requirements are met. Except properties with C5 condition ratings delivered as is must meet the condition rating that I just explained to you. So what they're saying is we will take properties with a C5. Properties with a C6 must be made subject to those issues being repaired. So they won't do loans for the most part. They won't do loans on a C6. If you C6, which we'll get into next, then you have to make it subject to the C6 being corrected so that the house is at a minimum a C5 rating, if not higher. C6. Improvements have substantial damage or deferred maintenance with deficiencies and defects that are severe enough to affect the safety, the soundness, the structural integrity of the improvements. The improvements are in need of substantial repairs and rehab. So this is, we're getting pretty uggy here at this point. All of these would hit C6 in a heartbeat. People are living in the houses on the left-hand side. They're still there, but the deferred maintenance from broken windows, peeling roof tiles, bad, no insulation, whatever it is, you've hit the C6 range on some of this. 5 maybe. And on the right-hand side, clearly C6. It's a hollowed out house. Okay, so it's C6 condition. Now you as an appraiser, first of all, call your client and tell them what it is, and you'll have to make the house subject to this house being inhabitable, everything being finished, livable, broken windows fixed, bad roof being repaired, something like that. So it's C6 roof, C6 interior. You'll make it a C3 or 4, but you have to call it and make your appraisal subject to. The front of this house looked absolutely fine from the street. It sold really cheap. I didn't understand it. Drove by, I thought it was just Jim Dandy perfect. And so I stopped and got out of my car and looked at the side of the house, and yeah, it's not really livable. But it's only when you drive by and look at some of these houses that you'd figure this out. So C6 rating is applicable when the appraiser identifies a physical deficiency that affects the safety. Broken windows would do it. Soundness, there's roof leaks and it's going to start to rot the wood, or structural integrity. Detrimental conditions of the improvements must be reported in the appraisal. You do it in the addendum. Even if C6 conditions are typical for your competing properties. How your C6 compares to the others is an adjustment you make. Do they all classify as C6? I don't care if all of them are C6. Doesn't mean it's a C4 or a 5 or average. It's no longer how does it relate. It's how does it fit within the definition. And on the UAD, the appraiser must identify the items that need immediate repair and the items that may have been deferred, like, roof maintenance. So the condition rating selected for the property, if you run into something C6, and it could be a single component or a lot of it, If you hit a condition rating for the property, must reflect the overall view. That's what they're looking for. So it would be inappropriate for you to just take the whole thing down to a 5 or the whole thing up to a 1, depending upon the condition. But let me show you a twist here. Here's a little exception in the C6. The C6 rating is an exception because it indicates that the property is impacted by one or more physical deficiencies that negatively impacts the safety, soundness, or structural integrity of the property. You know, the one burned down with the fire, a roof that leaks, that sort of thing would hit it as a C6. So the whole house might be a C2, C3. But if you have one component that impacts the safety, soundness, structural integrity of the property becomes a C6. Now, at that moment, you have to then make it subject to the house being improved so that it no longer is a C6. Talk about making it tough. So as a result, if any portion of the dwelling is rated a C6, then the whole dwelling is rated as a C6. So the appraisal report must identify and describe the physical deficiencies that could impact the safety, soundness, structural integrity. Okay, that's your addendum. If the appraiser has identified any of these deficiencies, then the property must be appraised subject to completion of the repairs. So you see it, you write it into your addendum, and then you say subject to the roof being fixed or the gutters or whatever it is. So it must reflect. So here's a way to do it. If you see something that triggers something, whether it's a deck you could fall off and kill yourself, broken windows, if you see something that triggers a C6, number one, you will state the issues that render the property's current condition a C6. What are they? List them out. Make the appraisal subject to completion of those issues that you just listed out. You will note the issues in the appraisal addendum, but throughout the appraisal form, you will rate the subject under the hypothetical that it has been repaired. You will say, I'm assuming there's a new roof or a repaired roof or a fixed window or a railing on a deck or whatever that is. Throughout the report, just like you were doing it for new construction, hypothetically, when it's built, here's its rating. And you go through the appraisal with this hypothetical. And then you make it subject to all of those things being cured or repaired. So after the repairs, is the house going to be move it up from a 6 to a 5, a 4, a 3? That's what you say on the appraisal report. After repairs, this house will be a C whatever. And you have to describe this throughout your addendum. So the addendum will explain what it is, what it will be when it's finished. And a lot of photographs are going to be needed. So if you see something that triggers a 6, subject to that being repaired, and then you will give the house a superior rating than a 6. And again, I don't know what that'll be. That's up to you. And if you're not qualified to figure out if it's a health, safety, soundness, or whatever, if you're not, then you simply describe those deficiencies, you simply describe those issues, and you make the house subject to the satisfactory inspection by a qualified professional. Maybe you have a failed septic tank system. I did a house like that once. It was a little smelly getting to the front door. And just assuming it had failed, and I made it subject to an inspector coming out and certifying that it was all functioning. Whether it's a well, a roof, a septic tank, plumbing, heating, whatever it is, it's outside of the scope of most appraisers. So simply make it subject to somebody inspecting and certifying that this house is all okie dokie. Now, you more than likely, the good news is you have to do a final inspection of that, 442 and revised and that sort of thing. So please understand that, let your client know that you're going to be coming back out. So, in addition to rating the overall condition of the improvements, you must individually rate the condition of the kitchen and the bathrooms. And it's the very same 1 to 6 system. So if you got new construction, that's what it is. If it is a brand new kitchen in an older house, the best it could be is C2. If there's deferred maintenance, it's a C4. C2 is, again, fully remodeled, brought back up, or maybe no or little physical depreciation, the very same way for the kitchens as you've done the rest of the house. If things are kind of worn and beat around the edges just a little bit, but still well maintained, maybe it's a C3. C4, minor deferred maintenance and physical deterioration. It only requires some cosmetic stuff. Maybe it's fixing of a door. Maybe it is painting of your cabinets, cosmetic. I'd put a new water faucet on that sink myself, but everything else in the house is in pretty good shape. You know, vinyl floors, paint, the whole bit. Minor update, cosmetic, and frankly, the light fixture and I think the water fixture would probably hit the C4 level because of it. Deferred maintenance, yeah. The upper left-hand side, the guy never painted the house since the 40s. Smoke like a chimney. And that's the way it is. Now, everything still functions. It still works. It's not 6. But it was heavy deferred maintenance, need of repair. The livability is diminished. How? I wouldn't want my friends coming into my house looking like that. The one on the right, different cabinets, different countertops. They didn't finish trimming or finishing off the window. There's a lot of stuff. Dated, broken cabinet doors, kind of hanging in there. It's not a 6 because it's still livable, but it is starting to diminish. You know, would you feel good in bringing your friends here? If not, 5. 6, damage. Broken doors. The house down on the lower right hand side, nobody told me what it looked like until I got there. Clearly there had been some issues impacting the kitchen, like it's uninhabitable. 6. So you do the very same thing for the bathrooms. Brand new, dated, or I can't enter it because it's filled with mold. That's a 6 down on the right hand side. The rest of the house could be a 2, but if there's mold like that in the bathrooms, 6. Subject to the mold being remediated, the cabinets being rebuilt, subject to this house being different, because it's a 6 now, and at that point, Fannie Mae does not want to do a loan on it. So the same thing, new or almost new, you're at a C1 or 2. C3, well maintained, limited wear and tear. C4, some deferred maintenance, there's some. C5, need of some significant repairs. You can see the cabinets, they're clearly in need of refinishing and repairs. And that one on the right, I don't know how you'd make it between the wall and the sink if you were a little overweight. There's 6, damage, defects, impact safety. Safety, I can't enter that house with that mold. You could, oogie. Seriously, that was up for sale, and this was in the desert Southwest. Ends up, if you don't keep the air conditioning on in the winter and it's uninhabitable, mold grows. Didn't know that, by the way. So you rate the kitchens, the bathrooms, and everything else. Describe, describe, describe. That's what you got to do, and that's what leads you to the conclusion of what your C will be in the sales comparison approach. So this isn't over. This Q and C, the collateral underwriter and the whole bit, this started back in 2011, and there are more improvements to the collateral underwriter, more things it's going to be looking at. It's going to start incorporating view and functional and garages, far more than it has to this point. There is more coming. When I originally did this in 2011, 12, 13, there were 21 new changes already planned. And here we are in 2018, and there's already numerous more changes to the collateral underwriter planned that are coming up. So you need to take education more than just your necessary to renew your license. You need to stay up on top of that, or you will be classified as a tier 2 or 3 appraiser, and you will not like the fees you get with those. I'm trying to keep you safe. This is a completely different appraisal world than existed prior to 2008. Completely different. Everything is being changed. Computers are there. We're being analyzed as appraisers more, cross-checked. And I'll tell you, frankly, most appraisers, a lot of them simply won't survive. Or they'll be relegated to $300 fees or something stupid like that. Tier 1 appraisers get high fees because they do the job right, and they are appreciated by some clients. Not all, but some. And if you can find those, they dig your tier 1 work and they pay. In Seattle, I'm at $850 as a starting for an appraisal. And it's because we do a higher quality appraisal and we find the clients that are willing to pay us for that. So, This was just about a 2 hours worth of class here. I have 4 and 7 hour versions of this when I do it live. Then we get to yell and scream at each other and have a good time. It's much more information, much more example, a little slower pace. It's CE approved in most of the western United States. If you'd like to have a class in your area to go over this so we can yell and scream and throw spitwads at each other, well, contact us. I mean, reach out. We can do this. If you have any more questions, hey, or classes, go to thehagerinstitute.com. There's more classes there. If you got questions, hey, classes at the Hagar Institute, and one will do our best to answer back for you. This is Richard Hagar, the Hagar Institute and American Home Appraisals. I hope you understand the Q's and C's and your woos and wees a whole lot better, and thank you for attending.